Welcome to Wild Turkey Science, a podcast made possible by Turkeys for Tomorrow. I'm Dr. Marcus Lashley, Professor of Wildlife Ecology at the University of Florida.
And I'm Dr. Will Goolsby, Professor of Wildlife Ecology and Management at Auburn University. We're both lifelong hunters and devoted scientists who are passionate about hunting, managing, and researching wild turkeys.
In this podcast, we'll explore turkey research, speak to the experts in the field, and address the difficult questions related to wild turkey ecology and management.
Our goal
is to serve as your connection to wild turkey science. So I guess when this comes out, it's going to be 2024.
Is it?
Yeah. This is the first day of the year.
Good gracious.
Isn't that something?
So did you bring me on today to ask me if I was going to do year two? Because I only committed to 1 year initially, remember?
Yeah. Well, I am going to formally ask you, are you willing to do year two on this?
I guess.
Well, if you said no right now and then we air this, I'm expecting you to get 2,000 emails or more.
Only if you admit that you need me to keep bringing the talent.
I do need the talent.
Okay.
I need it.
Then I'll do it. But I will say that the time investment that you promised me at the outset versus what I've actually invested, there's a big delta there. And it's not.
You got into it.
It's not negative. It's a positive one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, how are we we're almost to 60 episodes.
Yeah.
That's hard for me to believe. I don't know why.
So
you do the math, it works out. But
I genuinely, I know we joke around a lot, but I genuinely have been very humbled and encouraged by how much feedback I've gotten about how we've impacted the wild turkey resource. I thought it would be good. I thought it would be popular, but not to the extent that it has been.
You just weren't prepared for it.
And people need to understand that as an average academic, you don't get that much feedback on the science that you're either a part of or that you're trying to help communicate, right?
Right.
We go to conferences and workshops and things like that, and you get a few attaboys here and there, so to speak, but nothing like what we've had over the past year. And I'm not saying that because I'm looking to have the spotlight shown on me. I really don't even enjoy that much, as you know. We go places together, and I kind of just try
to squirrel away in the corner.
But to have that impact and to have that many people tell us that we've added value, is very humbling and very encouraging.
Yeah, I agree. It really sucks you in too. The more you get that feedback, the more you want to put into it, and it just is this positive feedback. And I feel the same way. It's just been overwhelming. The people that reach out, they show us, hey, look, I'm burning now, or look at this patch that I went and did, some forest stand improvement in, or look at my brooding cover, all those things. We've been, getting that feedback, and that's amazing. Makes you feel like you're making a difference, we're putting a lot of time in this, trying to bring people content that they can learn from and use, that ultimately will positively influence the resource that all of us share a passion for. So I think that's important to keep in perspective.
For sure. Well, I know that you have several surprise questions that you wanted to spring on me in this episode, as we talked about a minute ago before you hit that red button. But I've got one that just came to mind that I want to spring on you.
Let me click record real quick. I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
So what is your least expected piece of feedback that you've gotten? Feedback or just, comments or a message? Can be any of those.
Man,
which one surprised you the most?
That is a good question. like so like a question, feedback, or could it be like from a particular sector or person?
Sure. Whatever you're thinking.
It's hard. There've been several surprises. I think one of the things that was most surprising to me is that we have been uh, contacted by a couple of people that are either I don't want to call them politicians, but like lawmakers or in really high influential positions and agencies,
Mm-hmm.
and the feedback, which has come in multiple forms. Some of it has been appreciation, some of it is questions about policy or something. But
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect to get that kind of feedback, but like I didn't think that we had people like that listening.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I didn't think we would have as many people in the wildlife space, for lack of a better term, that would listen to this. I thought it would be more,
Yeah,
lay people, non wildlife, non biologist, non academic.
yeah. Well, yeah, that is surprising to me. I kind of expected to have some biologists and foresters that are practicing
Mm-hmm.
listening, and that's probably just because of experience with other podcasts that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I did not expect some of the people that have reached out to us, that the positions like that are listening and gaining from this,
Mm-hmm.
having research right there at their fingertips to help
Yeah.
them work through policy and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. I didn't expect that at all.
That's a good one.
So I had, if I'm thinking about questions or comment like feedback, I have had people basically spanning the entire spectrum of, I don't know what the right word is. I want to say confidence, but like they basically have some people have told us that we really need to crank this up and make it more scientific and like more detail oriented to help people do specific things. And then we've had the opposite end of the spectrum, which I told you about one that I just got recently where they were like, you really got to come down a few notches. I
Yeah.
can't even follow this conversation. And it's like, what do you do? So
I guess you decide who your audience is and go
roll
from there.
with it.
But yeah, I mean, that one surprised me. And I think we've talked about it briefly at least one time before, but every now and then I can twist my wife's arm and get her to listen to an episode. and I will say that she gave me the feedback that the listenability has improved greatly over time, which I'm glad to hear. And actually, in a more lighthearted note, that was going to be my surprising feedback that I was going to share with you, is that it's entertaining. I never expected us, the two of us,
we would be
to be entertaining to anyone other than, my kids when I, put a mask on my face and dance around like an idiot in the kitchen or something. But
is that why your voice is muffled right now? Is it because of your mask you're wearing?
But
yeah,
I was surprised to hear her say, because she has a master's degree in a scientific related field. I also call it science adjacent, but and she says that she has a difficult time following sometimes. But that surprises me too, because I kind of think of myself as just a slightly educated dumb. But
well, I mean, we hang around with a bunch of extremely educated people all the time, and I really feel like I'm the dumb one.
Yeah.
In every crowd I'm in, usually.
I feel like I'm the dumb one on this podcast right now.
Man, that's not saying much. Oh, I don't hear that very often. So I'm gonna take that as a compliment.
Well, at least I've got my looks going for me.
I think I'm with you on that. That's pretty interesting feedback. I didn't expect us to be fun to listen to.
Yeah.
Maybe educational, but we've tried to stick to our guns and continue to stay as objective as possible. And I
Mm-hmm.
know that our audience, based on feedback, at least from the ones that contact us, appreciate that part. But I didn't expect that people were enjoying it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like outside of just learning.
Yeah.
You know, it's more like I don't know, a fun show to listen to.
Yeah.
I don't know how to even characterize it.
Yeah,
I wouldn't
categorize it as like casual entertainment, but here we are.
Yeah.
I guess to the right people, there's someone for everyone, right?
Yeah. Well, we lost everybody that was listening now, so
that means we can just speak freely, right?
Yeah. You're on the air.
To be honest, though, our real world conversations aren't very different. But
I know.
But
sometimes we just like, why did we not just click record?
Yeah.
We basically just did the episode without even recording it.
But
if we could trim that fat, we would probably spend a lot less time doing this.
That's true.
Because we often go over a lot of the content before we're recording.
Well, I was just thinking about back to, in terms of the listenability of it, when we recorded some of those initial episodes, right? And like we were recording all these episodes and none of them had aired yet. So we didn't know how any of it was going to fare. And we recorded like, I don't know, 10, 12 maybe?
Something. I think it was 12, yeah.
It was a lot. And I can remember like in one of those early Predator Control episodes, and it may have been, I don't know if we've ever mentioned this on the air, but we had one episode that we recorded like three or four times.
It was one of the Predator ones. The beauty of it was my memory is so poor that it was like I was hearing it the same. You were telling me the same thing, and it was like I was hearing it for the first time every time.
It's like unwrapping a present over and over again every day.
I remember when I used to work in the same lab with Chitwood, there was some say, and I said something along this line, but he's really detail oriented. But you know, he was commenting on my creativity about something. And I was like, well, you know, every time I look at this, it's like I'm going down a new rabbit hole every time.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm going down the rabbit hole. We're getting deep into this, but it's a new rabbit hole for me every time, which
every
allows me to
wake up and walk outside and spin around and look at.
Yeah.
But the reason I was thinking back to that episode, outside of the fact that we recorded it like 3 times because we don't know anything about technology, is that like I remember reading off like a bulleted list I have like of points that I wanted to make, and it's good for staying on your talking points, but it's not very listenable.
Well, I think that's one reason that we're getting better at this, because we're definitely more relaxed and, you know, trying to have fun with it. And we have a good idea of the things we want to cover, but we also started splitting that effort and trying not to communicate it so that we have a real genuine reaction from each other. It's hard when you record the same episode 5 times.
Yeah.
But
yeah, the prescription drugs have really helped me relax.
Oh, is that what it is? These little pills, man, they're working wonders.
I hear they're hard to get off of, but we'll worry about that later.
Yeah. Well, so we're getting up there near 60. I was curious, what was your favorite from 2023? So we're a year into this. What was your favorite episode or topic or, you know, segment of a episode? You know, whatever.
So I actually have 2, but they're for different reasons. Is that allowed?
Sure. Why not?
Okay. So
it's not like somebody's sitting there grading us or something. You know?
Well, I mean, I feel like you're the co-host with a capital C, so you get the final say.
No.
I'm the co-host lowercase c. So my first one is Has Turkey Habitat Changed? Episode number 21. If y'all want to go back and listen to that. And the reason for that is that we probably got more listener comments and feedback on that episode than any other. And the reason that I appreciated that feedback was for 2 reasons. A lot of the feedback was people's eyes had really been opened. And that's, you know, why we're here, you know?
Yeah.
It was provocative in a sense of the way that we kind of presented some of that data and to convince people that say, you know, because we got such an influx of messages when we started talking about turkey declines being a habitat related problem, that I live here, I live there, I live here, and nothing's changed. And like, when we started going into explaining all the exotic invasives that weren't here, all the land use practices that weren't here, just even 20 years ago, when a lot of turkey populations were peaking, I think a lot of people just took a step back and they were like, stuff really has changed.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't gobbled in a while, so
I know. I was appreciating that gobble.
But then also the other type of feedback that we got on that episode were people commenting on how I converted things over to units of Alabamas, because we were talking about the scale at which some of these practices have been implemented, or the way that the area occupied by these exotic invasive species, and it was in millions of acres. I couldn't get my head around that, so I converted it. And maybe I'm speaking to the choir right here, and all of you that are listening heard that episode, but I feel like probably we picked up some new people since then. But for whatever reason, I have to do things like that to get my mind around things. And I think it helped a lot of other people get their mind around things. And it was also happened to be hilarious at the same time for whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, I definitely, that was a really fun episode. It was eye-opening also to us, because we had both gone about that literature review in a different way.
Yeah.
So that was the first time I had heard it, and thinking in Alabama just makes sense to me.
I've always thought in Alabama, so that's my default mode. Yeah. But the other one was episode number 50, Legends of Turkey Research.
I really appreciated that episode too.
Yeah. And especially
it's another one we had to record multiple times.
It is. It is. I'm sensing a trend here, but there are a few reasons for that. One was that, just to get to talk to Eric and Larry, I mean, I've cited their papers so many times throughout their career. It's almost like, when you meet those people, I know this is such a dorky thing to say, but as a scientist, these are people that you hold in high regard. They paved a lot of the way for us in our current careers. They've contributed so much learning and so much information about this bird. And I think perhaps more importantly than that is that they have the benefit of hindsight, and they have the benefit of the long-term view that oftentimes we don't have. And the whole justification behind starting this podcast was, we understand that populations are in crisis in some places right now, and that can become very overwhelming, intimidating, and sometimes make you feel helpless. But they have that long-term view that kind of helps put it in context and helps us realize, that was their generation. They had their battles. This is our generation. We have ours. We'll come out on the backside better for it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. I hate that, there were a couple of gems from the first time we recorded with them that didn't come through in the second one, and vice versa. I hate we lost some of the content.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get them on again, but I felt the same way. As like, I can't believe I'm talking to these guys.
Yeah.
It's really, really awesome. They're so down to earth and knowledgeable and friendly, and one of the things that they said in the episode that we ended up having technical difficulties with, I realized how adamant those guys are for going with the data. I appreciated that so much that, they had an idea about how things were going, and then, when they saw data that conflicted with their point of view, they changed their point of view.
Yeah.
Which I think is an important trait. I think for everybody, but especially for scientists. And I don't know, I feel like you don't see that much from people that are that late in their career.
Yeah, we tend to get more entrenched over time.
Yeah, you just tend to start getting it figured out, and you're not going to be told otherwise. And those guys, on multiple occasions, especially in that part that we lost, it became apparent to me that they really are data-driven, and they have stuck to that. And I like that. I had a story, actually, I have not told you this on purpose, so that because I thought we'd talk about that episode on the air. So, I was at like a little shindig the other day, like Christmas party type thing, and I just happened to sit at a table with a retired professor who grew up in Missouri, diehard turkey hunter, and he told me a different version of the same story that they told me or told us on the air.
Yeah.
He told me a different version of it. He lived in the northern part of Missouri, and he talked about how, when they had a truck full of turkeys from his point of view,
Yeah.
when he was a kid. They had a truck full of turkeys and they were going somewhere, and they figured they weren't going to be able to make it all the way. So they just pulled over on the side of the road somewhere and said, well, I guess here will work. And it happened to be right by where he was growing up. So he became this diehard turkey hunter. It was just such a funny story. And I was like, wow, we heard a different version of this.
Yeah.
And he even, without me prompting him said, back in those days, everybody thought they were just, the only place for them was down in the southern part of the state in the mountains. And, one day they just decided they were going to turn some loose right down the road from me. So it was just so funny.
You think Eric and Larry were on that truck?
I have no idea. But I told him about, speaking to those guys, and, we had a nice conversation about it, but I just thought it was so funny. And what are the chances, that I would just happen to sit with that guy?
Yeah. That's crazy. So this was was this a wildlife related event or?
Yeah, so our department has an event, and he was a professor elsewhere, and he was just visiting. He was retired from maybe in Alaska. I can't remember what his affiliation was, but it was just, it was an interesting coincidence.
Yeah, I'd say so. So did I steal your favorite episode, or did you have one that was different from mine?
Well, both of those came to mind for me. When I was thinking about asking you that question, I was thinking, I better come up with some of my favorite ones because I thought you might turn that around on me. Those both were definitely in the top few for me. In terms of, I guess I'll go about it a little different way. One of the most eye-opening things to me, and it isn't confined to a single episode, but now we've talked to so many people, we've made the point several times, and I think you did on the episode directly with Andy Little from Nebraska. It's just been eye-opening to me about this bottleneck on brood cover. I think we covered that and how habitat has changed. In several other episodes, we've covered it, with Craig and Adam, and it's just, we've done it from so many different angles and so many different places, and that has been surprising to me how consistent it is. And I really enjoyed the episodes, and based on the feedback, feel like we really made some impact when we had the specific episodes on how to manage brood rearing cover. And I think we had Craig Harper on for both of those episodes, if I recall correctly.
Which he's always a hoot to listen to anyway.
Yeah, I mean, he's a hoot. He's really fun to talk to and listen to, but also he's so knowledgeable, and he's been a mentor for both of us. And so that set of episodes I hold in really high regard. I actually go back to them. I have multiple times now over the course of this year since we recorded them. I have gone back to them and taken notes on it a couple of times.
Yeah.
I incorporated some of the information into a presentation. I have shared that set of episodes with people that ask me questions, many of them not even listeners, but several times. Like, I just think that set of episodes, not only was it a lot of fun, and I felt like we had a large impact from that set of episodes.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Those
that
were
was
episodes
29
and 30. Yeah.
Yeah.
29 and 30.
So I thought that was a powerful set of episodes, and that was one that, one series, I guess, that stuck out to me. There have been several moments that stick out to me.
Yeah.
Like when you did the DNA analysis of the human scat.
Right.
Yeah, you can't unlearn that one.
Comedy gold, man.
I remember us having a discussion over whether or not we should even leave that in.
Everybody likes a poop joke.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've brought that up several times.
I haven't gotten any comments on it, and maybe it's because we never did a post on the episode, and that was kind of usually the focal point for where a lot of listeners gave us feedback, as we were posting every week, little clips from the episode, and people would come on there and say what caught their ear or something that was funny to them or whatever. But I was hoping that we were going to get some feedback on my DNA meta barcoding, talking about scanning the poops at the at the checkout line. I thought that one was just as funny, but maybe not.
No, it wasn't just as funny. It was funny,
but it wasn't a personal story.
Yeah. I keep thinking about the little purple glove finger sticking out of.
Yeah.
Oh man. So, what about have you any instances like that, like really funny things that stick out to you?
All of my jokes.
Oh, is that it? This has really been centered around you, hasn't it? Maybe you're not bringing the talent, you're bringing the humor. Is that what's happening here?
Man. I don't know.
I guess, the Alabamas, I think that was funny too.
Yeah. That one was fun.
Then another one that the Alabamas, I think that one was kind of shocking to people because of scale.
Yeah.
We had a similar thing on the feeding episodes when we were talking about the scale of feeding. I think there was a lot of shock value in that because people did not realize, and I did not realize, the extent to which those practices are being implemented.
Right. Trying to think funny moments besides my jokes.
Could you think of one joke that I made that was funny?
Why you got to put me on the spot like that?
I'm kidding. There were several episodes, like the one that comes to mind is How to Science as well.
Mm-hmm.
I like having the interaction from the audience and going through the questions, but we had a few episodes that were pretty popular.
Yeah.
And, in the grand scheme of things, if you look at the relative performance of episodes, they were pretty popular episodes, and they were completely driven by our audience.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool too.
Yeah. Yeah. So I can think of, you mentioned How to Science, and then I Lease Land. What About Me?
Yeah, that one's performing relatively well.
Another one was What Not to Do.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was the other one I thought of. Yep. So I think that's really cool.
So what do you want to do? What do you want to do this year? Maybe it's time we should actually plan some stuff.
Yeah. Well, one thing I think we should do, we're talking about what we like, what we thought was funny, what we thought was informational, all those things. But I really think we should ask the audience. Like, we want to get to know the audience, know what topics you valued, what you'd like to hear about, get to know where people are at, how much land are they managing for turkeys, how is this resource valuable to you, those kinds of things. So we are going to link a survey, shouldn't take you more than a minute or so, in the show notes, and we'd love for the audience to get on there real quick. So if you're listening to us now, just maybe if you're driving, I guess pull over, but pause it and click on that link, and that would really help us a lot because it'll help us decide which topics, who to get.
Yeah.
How much impact is this having? How can we, to continue to improve, I guess, for the resource, because that's ultimately our goal here. And I think we're all in agreement. We want more turkeys, and we want to do things to help turkeys. So that will help us a lot. So we'll link that in the show notes for everybody to make it easy. And we tried to make it short as well so that it doesn't take long.
Mm-hmm.
So, a minute or two, just drop us a note, fill that questionnaire out, and that'll really help us, I think, for 2024.
Yeah, I think that's going to be especially important going forward because this year we've covered, most of the major topics centered around wild turkeys and the ones that are, the hot button issues that conversations are kind of centered around right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say that, we've covered everything. Obviously we haven't.
Right.
And there's different aspects of each of those major topics that we could delve further into or
Mm-hmm.
address in slightly different ways. And I think that's where we're asking for y'all's help, is to get that feedback so that we can make sure that, for lack of a better phrase, bringing value to the customer. I mean, y'all aren't customers. This is free. We don't make anything from this podcast, but, we value getting hands.
We make turkeys from it, I hope.
Yeah. We value, exactly. We value getting information into the hands and the heads and the hearts of, the landowners and the practitioners out there. So anything that you do that helps us tailor what we talk about and the content and the context that we talk about it in, better to your needs and your purposes. We can't do that for everybody, but we're going to look at the major trends and the feedback that we get, and then that can help drive what we do going into next year. Although I think, as we're going to go into in just a minute, we do have some ideas.
Yeah, we do have a lot of topics planned, and we may or may not do them, I guess, based on how this feedback goes. But one other thing I wanted to add is, we've had this discussion a bunch of times between the two of us, and there are some topics that we feel like, man, we have killed the horse and beat it for, there's no more horse. Right,
it's just fertilizer now.
We've just gone over some of these topics.
There's just a green patch of grass where the horse used to be.
Yeah, it's like a cadaver island of nutrient richness for the ryegrass.
You know all about that, don't you?
Yeah, I do. So, my point of that was, it would help us. Like, have we belabored habitat and habitat management too much? Because we've talked about it on like 15 episodes. But there may still be aspects that people want us to cover. You may want us to revisit a topic. You may want us to go back to season frameworks or predator trapping. Like, we have a lot of topics that you and I feel like we have really covered in detail and belabored, and that may not be the way the audience feels. So,
right.
Getting that feedback will be extremely informative for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the ideas that we have.
Okay.
Do you have any ideas?
No, just jokes.
Just jokes. So all this time I thought I was the funny one.
So I think I'm just funnier around you. You bring out the best in me.
Oh, well, I appreciate that.
Yeah. I think it's important to mention that Turkeys for Tomorrow has agreed to sponsor us for another year.
Yeah.
And that's huge. It wouldn't be possible without that financial, right. I was going to say assistance, but it's not assistance. It's like all the money we get, and all that money goes directly to our producer.
Yeah. And so we're just paying the bills basically to make sure this thing functions.
Yeah,
we're not making any money off of it.
So we have somebody on the back end, because we're such, barely useful idiots, that they can actually produce a quality show that has, decent sounding audio, as good as our voices can sound.
She has made us sound a lot better than we do without her.
Yeah, I mean, if y'all heard the raw the sound files on some of these episodes, you would not think the same of us.
How many times have we been like, Charlotte, I'm so sorry. I know. You don't have to tell me. I know. I'm sorry.
And now I'm acutely aware of every environmental sound or noise that I make in my office because she's called me out on them multiple times. But
quit clicking your pen.
Yeah. Will, does your chair have a click? What is that? So, TFT, thank you for agreeing to provide another year of funding for our producer, Charlotte. Thank you to Charlotte. I think absolutely, like, again, this none of this would have happened without her help. And so I think in that vein, one of the things that I don't know exactly when any of these episodes are going to fall.
Right.
But one of the things we want to do is we want to talk to the Turkeys for Tomorrow folks again. In particular, they have new leadership with Jason Lapardis, and we haven't had him on the show yet. We want to give him a chance to come on and talk about, the past couple of years of evolution for Turkeys for Tomorrow, and then kind of why he was brought on and what his vision for the organization is.
Right. Yeah, and I've talked to him, and I know you have a couple of times in just the recent past, and it sounds like they have, they have big plans. We'll just say it that way for 2024, and I think it would be really great to hear from him and see what is the vision, like you said, what are they planning? I think some of our audience will be really interested in that.
Yeah, and I think it'll probably answer a lot of people's questions too, because you and I have both gotten messages from a variety of folks asking, that aren't really certain, like, what is TFT and what are they offering or what are they bringing to the table? What value do they add? And folks have to understand that this organization is a fledgling, right? I mean,
they're still working out what they're going to do exactly.
Yeah, and if nothing else, I can guarantee you that from the get-go, they were well-intentioned. They've always been trying.
I mean, I really think I've said it multiple times. I think it's impressive how much they have been able to accomplish, how many research projects they've been in. They've, from my perspective, put a lot of the resources that they've raised directly into research, and I think that is a pretty important thing to point out.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think, in regards to some of those questions, people have really, really high expectations and standards for a really new organization to try to uphold. And, they're not going to be able to be everything to everybody starting out. And I think that, it's beneficial to all of us to give them some time to continue to develop. And I think we're starting to see that now into the organization that they really envision being at the outset. And I don't want to speak too much for them, but, every organization takes some time to get up and running.
Yeah. I think it's important, though, like what you just said, we aren't. They are contributing funds to let us do this. And that's exactly what they've done. They have not asked us to cover particular topics or avoid topics or, asked us to support certain things. Or
Nope.
They haven't done any of that.
In fact, we've contradicted some of the things that they.
I was just about to say some of those comments came because we weren't saying the same thing on some issues, and we're not speaking for them, and they're not speaking for us. So I think that there's a lot of value in that. They wanted to back science and back scientists to talk about it, and that's what they've done here. And I think that is a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, once again, like we've talked about several times on this podcast, whether it be in the context of scientists having different ideas, managers having different ideas. We all have a little bit different ideas, and it doesn't really matter, what highway we're on if our destination is all the same, like our objective. And everybody that we've worked throughout this podcast has that objective of more turkeys. So
right. Well, sort of in the same vein of interest, I think it would be valuable for us to talk to some folks at NWTF as well. I know they've got a big fundraising thrust. I don't know what
initiative.
Initiative. There you go. See, that's why I have you on there, for the big words
and the humor.
I can't think of the big words, and the humor and the talent,
and the looks.
No, we're just too far.
See, that was a joke.
There was a line in the sand, and you stepped right over it, right there. See, there's sand everywhere in Florida, so you got to watch out for the line in the sand.
What about quicksand?
Yeah, you got to be quick for that. So, they have the Habitat for the Hatch initiative, which I think is worthy of.
I love the name.
Trying to get somebody on here from that organization to talk about that. I think that's an important initiative, and I'd like to hear more about it.
Yeah, and we've even talked to them a little bit about how we may play a role in that. So hopefully that develops further, and we're able to talk about it this year as well.
Yeah, I hope so. And if it does, then I'm sure we'll be talking about it several times in the coming years.
Yeah,
assuming we can keep this train rolling.
Yeah. So our next idea, this one is
man. How many times have we gotten asked to cover this?
Well, that's what I was going to say. This is perhaps the most long-awaited topic of many of our original listeners.
Mm-hmm.
We were hearing this from day one. Please cover decoys. Yes. Please talk about decoys. And now, most of the time, I feel like the question is more specific in terms of like fanning and reaping. But if you collectively include those within the decoy conversation, we've gotten a lot of feedback about that.
Mm-hmm. And it's something that it's division. It's creating division in our community amongst turkey enthusiasts. A lot of folks are really bent out of shape on this issue. Regardless of what their stance is, there's multiple points of view, but I think it is a topic that we need to cover in detail.
Mm-hmm.
And we have been trying to stick with the research, what is verifiable,
which is generally why we've kind of shied away from this topic.
Yeah, and obviously we can't always do that, but we're trying to stay as objective as we can, and this is one that we've struggled with trying to figure out how to do that. But we do have some research that we're planning to cover that's coming soon, and I think it will be really interesting part of this discussion.
Yep. Giving you a little bit of a peek behind that curtain.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff to discuss there, and hopefully, I can't swear to it because I don't know how much data that's applicable that we're going to be able to come up with in addition to what we just mentioned. But I think it would be really interesting in that episode series to look at some, break down some data related to, how just looking at circumstantial evidence, right? Correlations between changes in decoys or decoy regulations over time, maybe even decoy types, and how that's influenced harvest. And then, I could see us having on a sexual selection and animal behavior type person. Maybe not somebody that specializes in turkeys, because that person does not exist to my knowledge. But there are people that work in that sphere that have a very, that are aware of like some overriding or enduring principles that are retained across a multitude of species, or maybe they just specialize in, birds in particular, and mating displays and courtship behavior in birds, that I think will bring some relevant information to this conversation.
Yeah, I think so. Another thing I think is important for us to cover, and it sort of fits into that because it's about gobbler harvest and how that's changing or has changed. So I think we need to talk to some folks about some of the ongoing research on harvest rates across states, and maybe we can get even a historical perspective on that. Like, can we actually connect the changes in some of these decoy regulations to changes in gobbler harvest?
Yeah. I feel like that is an episode series that, who knows, we might end up with 2, 3, 4 episodes covering the topic. And then like we did with some of those earlier episode series that were so comprehensive and covered such a variety of issues that we'll probably come back with some kind of synthesis episode.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling that that's going to be one of those that you hit record and it's just like you breathe a deep sigh, like, here we go. Like, how do we even start wading through everything that we've learned over the past few weeks?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say earlier, and I forgot to, or I don't remember what happened now. But the irony in this sentence.
You're seeing it for the first time again. Like a newborn babe.
One of the things that, you just stimulated me to rethink through this. That the first year, one of the most surprising things for me is how much I grew as a scientist.
Yes.
I did not know the literature on turkeys at all.
Yeah.
That's what I realized pretty quickly. Like, I got into it and I was like, wow. And I've also appreciated it because now we're kind of expected often in multiple situations to be that Johnny on the spot, know what hen survival is supposed to be and what nesting, all these different metrics. Like, I just know them now.
Yeah.
And that's been pretty special. I think, really important for us to reflect on is that we've grown so much as a part of this experience, because we're having to go in and do deep dives on this. But then, like, the reason that what you said resonated with me and made me think through this again is not only do you have to put all that time into it and try to go through all that, and then we get it all together, and then you have to try to make sense of it from that synthesis level, and that is a different beast altogether.
It absolutely is.
And it's been a lot of fun, but also really important, professional development.
Yeah. You've come a long way since we had that conversation about where do baby turkeys come from.
Yes, indeed. When you told me they nested on the ground, I was like, there's no.
Well, your first reaction was, why can't we teach them to nest in trees?
Where did that come from? Wasn't that a comment or something?
I had someone ask me that.
Oh my gosh.
Can we get them to nest in trees?
Why don't we just get them to nest in trees?
That would be a good episode into itself. Going back and combing some of our direct messages and comments and things like that, and pulling out like the dumbest comments.
We want to retain audience, not lose them.
So that'll be good episode series for sure, that I know a lot of people are gonna probably applaud, and many others will probably throw tomatoes at us over.
Yeah, I think so. Well, and in seriousness, given our joking around about the turkey natural history and life cycle and everything, that is another series that we thought we really should go back to the basics, try to talk to some influential people that have worked in key aspects of turkey biology and natural history,
and even raised wild turkeys, maybe.
Yeah, we're working on that one.
Yeah.
So just thinking about the whole turkey life cycle and going through the basics, probably not that they nest on the ground, but what time of year they're nesting, how that varies across their range, what the vegetation looks like associated with that, poult rearing, they have such a interesting and complex life cycle. I think going through the timing of those different things, the vegetation they're using, the foods, predators at that point, all that kind of stuff, just really going through their life cycle will be valuable for people.
Yeah. That one's kind of hard for me. We had talked about doing that episode series this year, but where my mind always goes tends to be like the direct, actionable management recommendations. But I mean, anybody listening to this podcast is in some way a turkey enthusiast and just appreciates the
Yeah.
bird for aesthetically. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
So I think, because of that, there's a lot of people that will enjoy that information too, and it'll probably be
Mhm.
fun to go through.
Yeah, so some of it maybe is just more gee whiz.
Yeah.
Like if we're talking about turkey vocalizations, it's probably not gonna change the way people are managing their property, but,
I mean, it's like,
maybe change the way you hunt.
it does remind me of one day in the office this year. I spent probably 4 or 5 hours just looking up and reading different sources about when poults start flying from
Yeah,
all different parts of the country and all different types of research and things like that.
yeah. I
And
mean,
there's some
haven't you
of
just
you
gained so much out of that kinda stuff?
I have, and it
Like,
seems
just digging in for one little detail.
it's hard sometimes though because it feels like such an inefficient use of time, but it's not. In the long run,
Mhm,
maybe that day I didn't get to, all my emails or whatever other crap I had going on, but there's a long-term payoff with that. There's
mhm,
and I feel like there are. I don't want to toot our own horn, but I guess this may come off a little bit like I'm doing that. But there are fewer and fewer researchers that just um, understand like in depth degree, like the life history and the natural science of the species that they
mhm.
study. Like just those. It's just like I said, it's natural history stuff.
Yeah. We're losing naturalists.
And the more that you understand that, the better informed your research hypotheses can be, and the
Mhm.
better designed your experiments to test those
Yeah.
hypotheses can be. There's value in that.
Yeah, and the better you can communicate that to others so that they can learn and use it.
Yeah, cool. So you have graduate student series on here. What were you thinking there?
Yeah, so
Is that where we just complain about our grad students for 6 episodes?
no, I think we could have 6 episodes on that pretty easily, but I don't think we'd have anybody listening.
No, except them
uh, yeah,
taking notes for a
maybe.
lawsuit.
Yeah, they probably complain about us plenty as
Yeah,
well, so they may need their own segment. Um, no, really the thought from my perspective, we have spent a lot of time talking about turkeys and all this turkey research with the principal investigators
yeah,
at all these different places. But the reality of the situation is, this work is often being done in the field by graduate students and some, undergraduate technicians and professionals in some cases,
hmm,
but I don't get to spend nearly as much time as I would love to in the field on the ground, trying to
yeah,
catch turkeys, trying to track turkeys, all those sorts of things. I'm often living vicariously through the grad students. And
right,
I think they gain a lot of insight, that we can't necessarily convey. And I think it would be valuable for us to make a concerted effort to try to get them involved in some of the communication aspect, both as a learning experience for professional development for them, but also because a lot of the things that we gained, we've forgotten,
yeah,
and they're still right on the tip of their mind.
yeah.
So I think it would be pretty cool to try to tap into that and have them on the show.
I agree. The other thing that we planned on focusing on quite a bit this year, and we've already talked about this a little bit today, so we won't belabor it too much, but having more audience driven episodes. Um,
Yeah, they seem to be pretty popular based
mhm.
on the things that we can track, and I think we'll get a lot of that from the survey we have. Uh, if we can get folks to jump on there and give us some ideas, that'll be a starting point. But
Yep.
also trying to put out more things through social media, I think that that can go a long way.
Hmm.
So I guess we've got a pretty good lineup, but we have a few other ideas. I guess uh, things that are important, but not necessarily a whole series.
Yeah.
Uh, we get asked pretty commonly, and I hear a couple of people talk about this a lot. How do you age turkeys? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how old's the turkey I killed? And a lot of folks, including me, have kind of used the spur length
Mm-hmm.
as our indicator of age. But we've got some experts in the field that have studied this kind of thing, and it'd be cool to pick their brain about it and hear
Yeah.
some of the data behind things that they're saying. So I think that'd be a cool topic to, have a couple episodes on. Uh, it also could have management implications, if you're trying to do some population dynamics type work,
Mm-hmm.
understanding the, age structure of populations is important. The other topic sort of like that, where I don't necessarily think it's a whole series, but it's definitely interesting and something we should cover, is how many turkeys do I have?
Mm-hmm.
Every landowner has that in their heads, like, oh, I got a lot of turkeys or I don't have many. Well, how many do you have? Do we have ways to count them? And I think there's a lot of talk going on right now on different ways that you might try to address that from a research standpoint.
Yeah.
And it'd be cool to hear from some of those folks with different techniques that are available, and
Yeah.
whether or not they are useful for that purpose, and whether or not they're usable for the average person,
Yeah.
that owns
And this
land.
is, I think a lot of folks will be just interested to hear all the different techniques that we can use to try to estimate turkeys.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a shotgun approach, and I think that's appropriate analogy, for this
Yeah.
show. But yeah, I mean, there's so many
We need
people.
a good choke on it so we can narrow it down to the things that folks
Yeah,
can use.
that's right. That's right. But everything from, drones to genetics to feathers and poop, and there's like so many ways that we can go at this question, and all of those are being trialed right now to see, how robust are they, what kind of
Hmm.
precision and accuracy do they result in, and what's the expense, the cost associated with them in terms
Right.
of both, money and time. So that's kind of an exploding field right now, because counting is so important to understanding not only population trends, which are most intuitive, but then also from like a research and a regulatory, framework perspective. It's important to know how different actions or inaction even affects numbers. So that can provide us with some really good data to base decisions on related to managing turkeys.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Another one
So,
that I think will be really interesting to cover, and I appreciate it now more than ever because I've gotten involved in it. I'm still not a disease person, or a disease ecologist. I just get money to research turkey disease, and then I get somebody to come help me do that.
yeah.
But yeah, we plan on having a much more in depth episode series on disease than we've ever implemented in the
Hmm.
past, and it may be a good idea for us to try to schedule that one at some point, just before or during the beginning of turkey season when most turkeys are harvested, because I feel like that's when you and I both get so many pictures sent to
Hmm.
us about what's wrong with this turkey that I killed.
Yeah. I, the other point that came to mind when you were making that point, a lot of the disease work is being driven by hunter harvested turkeys too.
Yeah.
So a lot of collections, are coming that way. Yeah, this topic, I think it's really important. It comes up constantly, get asked about it all the time, but you and I both feel so uncomfortable with the topic,
Yeah.
and there just aren't that many people who have a real skills or knowledge base in that area that are really interested or
Yeah.
focused or knowledgeable even about turkeys
Yeah. There's some great
specifically.
disease ecologists that are doing turkey related work right now,
Hmm.
but that is not the same as a person that makes a whole career working on diseases of a single species like turkeys. We
Yeah,
don't really have that person right now,
right.
which I could point you
So,
to several that have done that, for instance, with like deer.
mhm. Well, I think that is an important series for us to cover. We've got a couple of ideas about how those episodes might be structured, but we really need to bring in expertise to do that. And it's just been, sort of intimidating, I guess. We haven't done it, but we're going to try to do that this year.
Yeah. It's hard when you bring in people way smarter than you. And
you just got to let it go.
I'm using the collective you here.
Okay.
Us.
I thought you were talking specifically to me.
No, I wasn't. I know it came off that way, and I wanted to clarify. But the other thing that I've really, really, really enjoyed about doing this is all the people that we get to talk to that we never would have otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's a trend that you and I both want to keep continuing going forward. Because we learn so much from them. Our audience learns so much from them. Sometimes these result in relationships that build into research collaborations and help us learn more about the bird. But I'm just looking right now, we know of 6 research projects for whom we haven't talked to the principal investigator on in various states. And some of them are, right in the core of, the Southeast, in the area where turkey hunting is so popular. And then we have a greater number of states where we'd like to just, talk to their biologist or their turkey coordinator and just kind of find out, like what's the status of the bird in that state and what are y'all doing?
Yeah, I gain a lot of value from that as well. Like not just hearing what is going on in the different states, but also how are they, like how's the state agency, what's their view on how turkeys are doing, what are they changing in response, or what actions are being taken, that kind of stuff, and kind of comparing notes across states to see how different ones are handling situations. I think there's a lot of value in that. And I was looking back to see, I think we've covered research projects in 10 states or 12, something like that. And we've had coordinators on from quite a few states, and the list, of ones we haven't covered, I kind of felt like we had made the rounds. I don't know how to say it other than that. Like I felt like we'd already kind of covered a lot of the real estate, really well, and we haven't.
Yeah, really
there's
haven't.
so many holes. Like we have so many states that that we haven't even touched. No conversation with anyone from that area.
Yeah. Where I really think we need to have an episode?
I'm guessing you're going to tell me right now.
Hawaii.
I do not know. That'd be cool.
I think we have to record that one in person. I'm not sure if the internet goes there, so I think
it doesn't go across the water, does it?
Right. I mean, how could it? Like electricity and water doesn't mix. Everybody knows that.
I see where you're going here.
So, I think we may need to make a trip there to record in person.
Yeah. Another state, it just kind of came into my head when I got an email from a listener in Oregon.
Yeah.
Or Oregon. I don't know how they say it over there.
No, like you and I have talked about that recently, that we need to cover the Pacific Northwest because there's, I mean.
Well, like Washington State is a destination state.
Yeah, it's a big non-resident hunter state.
Yeah, so I want to cover some of the, the Pacific Northwest. I think we do have quite a few listeners up there. A lot of people interested in that area, even if they're from somewhere else. And it just dawned on me the other day when I was fielding a question from Oregon that, we really ought to try to find some folks out that way.
Yeah.
I've seen a few things published from out there, but I guess we just don't have a network of colleagues out there that we know well.
Yeah, the thing is this field is pretty small, the wildlife field, that is, so we're very well connected. I mean, to folks in a lot of states pretty much east of the Rockies. But then, you get west of there and there does tend to be, we're not as well connected. So that's made it more difficult.
I mean, they're going to different meetings and their biologists tend to go to schools more local,
Mm-hmm.
As opposed to the eastern states that the same trend is true. So there's some separation there, and we're going to have to look for the right people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the other hard thing, right? Is like, we can obviously fire up the Google machine and look up people out that way that we might talk to, but without having any kind of connection to them, we don't know, you know, anything
Yeah.
about them. So it can be
Well, it's harder
difficult.
to get a response and
Yeah.
for them to be willing to do
Yeah.
this if they have no idea who we are or what we're doing.
Right.
So, but we need to put in some effort to try to make that happen.
Yeah. Agreed. What else you got?
Well, there was one other idea that came to mind. It's another episode idea that we've gotten. One of the guys at TFT has brought it up to us that he'd like to hear us talk about it, and also a couple of listeners have asked about it, and I know that you and I have been on a couple of sidebars together with people asking questions or relaying information about this, but getting back to fall hunting, the effects of fall hunting on hen survival and populations, that line of inquiry, I think we should spend some time on as well.
Right. Agreed. Yeah, I mean that's another example of you know, I guess our southern bias kind of showing through because we don't have a lot of fall hunting in the South.
It's
So
just
again,
definitely not a big part of our
yeah. I mean, there's
hunting
some
culture.
counties where it's legal in Alabama, but it's not just something that people participate in on a widespread basis. So we're not as comfortable and familiar with it. But we can. That's not an excuse. We can bring in some people who are, and we can learn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Well, any other plans for 2024?
Um. Hmm.
I'm going to work on being funnier.
That's a good goal.
That's all you got. That's all you got.
I was trying to think of something funny to say.
Oh man, I feel like some of the humor is that we're
so
like
bad at it.
magooing through this thing. We're bumbling around, and the irony of many of our conversations and statements.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think I've ever been accused of being funny, but I think people laugh at us more than they laugh with us.
Whatever. It's like a train wreck. You just can't stop looking.
The funny thing is, at this point in my life, I don't care that much anymore as long as they're laughing, right?
Or learning. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I've really enjoyed this for all the reasons that we've already talked about, and I'm looking forward to seeing, where this year takes us.
Yeah. Well, we may have held a few things back too. We don't think we don't have some surprises in here.
I don't. Maybe he does.
Yeah, I'm not telling you because you always say it on the
air. It's just in the interest of transparency.
Yeah.
I'm a bad secret. I'm a bad secret keeper.
Well, it makes you a good scientist, I think.
Yeah. And a trustworthy person.
Yeah.
Well,
we certainly
not if you're the one that told me the secret.
We've certainly tried to stay objective and transparent.
Yeah.
We're
we're
linking every paper unless we forget them or can't find them or something. Because a lot of times, let's be honest, Charlotte has to go dig around trying to find what we're talking about.
And she does it sometimes off the sparsest of details sometimes.
And then she's often trying to spell a name for Google close enough to what we said.
Yeah. And we're mispronouncing it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. A lot of people's names have silent letters in them.
They do. But I don't want to belabor this point, but I do think it may be worth mentioning on the air. If not, just turn it off. Don't worry about it. But you and I have challenged each other because I think it is easy as a scientist over time to develop your own pet hypothesis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you develop this confirmation bias where you're only looking for evidence that supports that, and you're ignoring evidence that refutes that.
Mm-hmm.
And you and I, in our private conversations, continually, we've even done it on the air, challenge those
Mm-hmm.
biases that we start to sometimes develop. And
Yep.
like I said, we're not perfect. We're human just like everybody else. So yeah, we're going to have opinions, but at the same time, we're doing our best to keep those in check
Mm-hmm.
and just let the data fall where they may, whatever's best for turkeys kind of thing.
Yeah.
You do
Well,
that to me in particular a lot. I mean, I'll call you and go on some kind of rant, and you'll just
oh yeah.
say, well, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. And I'm just like, dang it, Marcus, this isn't what I was calling to hear. I was calling for you to commiserate with me.
Yeah. Well, I try to do that sometimes too. No, I think it's important for us to continually challenge each other that way. So, and after hearing, I mean, how many people have said how much they appreciate it, especially folks that need to use literature as part of their profession. I mean,
Yeah.
it seems to be serving as a resource for a lot of people,
Yeah.
where we're kind of, in doing this exercise, trying to set up things to make it an easy reference for them to get the information they need without having to go through the process of digging through the mounds of literature to find what they need.
Yeah.
So, in trying to cover topics as from both sides and as in depth as we can find literature on them, I think has gone a long way on that front.
Yeah. Speaking of which, and I know we're kind of getting a little bit long here, but I think this is worth mentioning. It didn't stick out as much in my mind as a memorable moment because it just happened yesterday. But and it just seems, the recency makes it seem less profound, right?
Yeah.
But y'all just finished working through, that episode we split into two parts because of its length with Duck Locasio from Louisiana talking about bottomland hardwood management. And one of the things I can't, maybe he said this before we started recording. I think he did, but he said he had listened to, several episodes. I don't know exactly how many he's listened to, but he said he's listened to a good number. And one of the things that he appreciated most is he said, there seems to be, a couple of primary lines of thought related to what's
Mm-hmm.
going on with turkeys right now, and he feels like we've done our best to kind of bring those sides together.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that we talk about probably less frequently as an objective of this podcast than any of the other objectives, is that we do want to kind of be that point to just help
Yeah.
everybody, if not work together, to start share information and talking,
Right.
and keep that
Yeah.
conversation going.
Yeah. Getting people to the table together to have
Right.
conversations, and the both sides of the table need not uh, agree,
Yeah.
but we should have a conversation and try to get all the information out there
Yeah. An
together.
honest conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And Duck, so if you're still listening to this after actually meeting us virtually and recording with us, which you may not be after that, you saw
That
behind
was
the
this
curtain.
last one.
Yeah. I appreciate that comment that he made.
Yeah, no, I did too. And it definitely, when we originally were brainstorming what this was going to be, that was one of our major pillars that we wanted, that we wanted that to be a foundation of what we're trying to do here. So trying to bring everybody to the table and be objective and try to get all the data out there.
Yep.
So good stuff. Well, for the 2 or 3 of you still listening, we sure do appreciate you.
Here's to 2024.
Yeah. It's
And
going to be a fun one.
Hey, I mean, turkey season's right around the corner. People are about to start, scratching their glass and their slates again and starting to knock the dust off their vest. And as you do that, if you're one of those listeners that hasn't given us a review yet, please do, because that helps us get the word out to more people. I know we've repeated it over and over again, but it really does matter.
Yeah, share it with your friends, your family that are turkey hunters, your hunting camp.
Yeah.
The more people we can get it to, the better for turkeys. That's
Yeah. It takes you 2 seconds. The more detailed feedback you give us, the better. But also, like, if you just want to go on there and leave a comment or leave a rating and say, I like turkeys, that's fine too. It doesn't have to take you more than 5 seconds.
I really hope we get a few I like turkeys just for you.
That would be amazing.
It'll confirm that they actually heard you at this late hour in this episode that we've rambled on about basically nothing.
When they're listening to us over their holiday, and they could be doing much better things. But
oh, well, maybe they're sitting on a deer stand thinking about turkeys, and we're,
do a lot of people listen to stuff on a deer stand?
I don't know.
I feel like I can't bring myself to do that. I feel like I'm just too.
I have never done that myself, but I'm not knocking somebody if they try it.
Yeah. No, I'm not either. I just feel like I'm gonna miss something.
Yeah, I want to hear that stick crack.
I have FOMO. Yeah. I mean, what else am I going to do if I don't hear the squirrels running around up underneath me?
Yep.
But yeah, I'll take a book. Usually, is what I like to do if I'm somewhere where I can conceal it pretty well. Anyway,
one thing I do seriously, I do have my cell phone, and I get out the little notepad, and I often am contemplating, research ideas or design or thinking through, science stuff.
Yeah.
What am I going to post to, about this new paper that's been published or, those kinds of things I do often when I'm in nature, kind of immersed in what's going on around me.
Yeah. Sometimes I do that and I just watch reels.
I try not to do things like that are distracting me from it, but I'm using that energy to channel it into something productive at the same time, and I'll kind of just keep notes as I'm thinking through, contemplating things.
Yeah, you're much more productive with your time than I am.
I don't think that's true.
All right, let's get out of here.
Yeah, thanks everybody. We appreciate all the support for year one. We hope to continue on into year two. So thanks for your support.
Here's to 2024.
Wait, did I say 2022?
Maybe you did. Run that back. Wild Turkey Science is part of the Natural Resources University podcast network and is made possible by Turkeys for Tomorrow, a grassroots organization dedicated to the wild turkey. To learn more about TFT, check out turkeysfortomorrow.org.